Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Abdul Qadeer Khan. How are you?
Walaikum Assalam, ma'am, I'm good.
So are you ready for the interview?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so let's start with your qualification.
I completed my bachelor's degree from Karachi University in the field of physical metallurgy. After that, I did my master's from Netherlands, and then I got my doctorate degree from the University of Leuven, which is located in Belgium.
Okay, so tell us something about your past qualification and past researches.
After my doctorate degree, I was offered a job at the Physical Dynamics Lab, which is a subcontractor for Urenco.
Sounds great. So what was the aim of your enroll?
Luckily, my interest lies in the same area where the company's research agenda is based on. I've always been interested in nuclear physics, and Urenco was a group formed by British, Dutch, and German companies that research about uranium enrichment centrifuges. Along with that, I was granted special access to the restricted areas of Urenco and got a chance to read the document on the gas centrifuge technology as well.
Good enough. Now, let's talk about your proposal. You have mentioned that you have been working on uranium-based nuclear weapons, right? And you just mentioned that you were in abroad. So, what brought you back to Pakistan?
As you might already know, during the war in 1971, Pakistan lost its east wing because it didn't have enough security and weapons for self-defense. And if this remains the same, we might lose West Pakistan to some other foreign hands as well. When I heard that India was becoming a nuclear nation in May 1974, I got really tense as West Pakistan was under great threat. But I also heard that the Prime Minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was already assigning tasks to the scientists and the PAEC to form a nuclear weapon. And we all know that after the war of 1971, Pakistan was very poor on economic grounds. Since then, from 1972, some senior scientists like Munir Ahmed Khan are working on weapon-grade plutonium. But still, Pakistan was not able to perform even a low-grade nuclear test and appear as a nuclear nation. I sent a letter personally to Bhutto Saab telling them I had required the expertise and I can help Pakistan in the development of the atomic bomb.
So as we know, and you also mentioned that PAC is working in a nuclear sector. So how can you contribute to that?
In the letter that I mentioned before, I wrote that Munir's idea of plutonium would not work and we should start working on highly enriched uranium, which isn't easy but can give us remarkable results. Also, I used to come every year to meet my family in Karachi, and sadly, upon inspection of nuclear sites in 1975, I couldn't see any progress, which was really disappointing. This made me worried, and further, I was insisted by Bhutto to come back to Pakistan and look into this.
Okay, so tell us about how your ideas are different from Munir.
Basically, plutonium needs to be produced in a nuclear reactor, whereas uranium can be found naturally. In addition to that, I have worked on uranium enrichment programs in Netherlands, and I'm very much familiar with the design of the centrifuges. Along with that, we know about the discovery of deposits of uranium found in Deir Ghazi Khan in 1963, and this kind of makes it easier for us to access uranium and make the fissile material using uranium.
Oh, so looks like you have an extensive experience in uranium enrichment. So, how are you confident in it and how do you progress?
I experienced while forming a team was that although there were a lot of educated people, but most of them lacked experience, which is why it's hard for me to accompany them for such a huge project. I tried my best to handpick some of the experienced staff from all over the world, including the United States. This is why it took me 3 years to build a competent team. While forming a team, I also created a research base named as the Engineering Research Lab, which aimed to construct and run uranium enrichment facilities.
So, have you developed the centrifuges yet?
Oh yes, of course. I, along with my team, started developing the centrifuges in Rawalpindi, and by God's grace, we achieved our first centrifugal enrichment of uranium by 6th April 1978.
So have you come across to any reductions during the nuclear testing?
Yes, since it is going to be a huge contribution to the Pakistani self-defense, I have done the coal test initially, that's why I am requesting for the land.
Well, that sounds interesting. So, what was the degree of success?
1983, we have conducted a successful subcritical test without any fissile material inserted in our nuclear device to prevent nuclear fission. I myself validated the preparations and other engineering calculations for this particular test. Finally, after succeeding this test, we have gained confidence for testing it with the fissile material.
Interesting. So research is making sense to us. We have noticed the relevant points and very soon we will let you know about our decision. Thank you.
He sounds quite confident, and all his points do make sense.
Yes, he mentioned Dr. Munir Ahmed Khan quite a few times. So let's just hear from him and then we can come up with a final decision. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Munir.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you, Dr. Munir? Right. So I am Arisha and she is Sana from Park Nuclear Development Company, and we have called you for a specific agenda. That is to know your opinions on the proposal we have considered from your peer scientist, Dr. Abdul Qadeer Khan. But before moving on that, tell us, where are you currently working?
I'm an atomic scientist and currently I'm the chairman at PAC. Since nuclear developments are already so much under spotlight, so I'm assuming you guys are familiar with PAC and other nuclear programs running around.
Right. Let's start our conversation by knowing about your past experience. This would help us in concluding the whole discussion.
Yes, exactly. So I was appointed as chairman at PAC in 1972. My first step towards the sector was submitting a detailed roadmap to the Ministry of Energy that envisioned linking the country's entire infrastructure to nuclear power sources, which eventually paved way towards inauguration of CANOP, which was the first milestone towards the goal of making Pakistan a nuclear power. It's running well, but it has also given me a hard time back in 1975 when Chief Scientist Wasif Miah forcefully migrated to Bangladesh due to some security issues. Not only this, I also worked on developing nuclear fuel cycle without any foreign assistance when Canadian General Electric stopped the supply of machine components to CANOP, just to ensure that plant keeps on generating power for nation's electricity grid. Moreover, my extensive experience as a nuclear engineer at IAEA and the breadth of knowledge has allowed me to play my role in the national wars by directing some senior scientists on classified projects. So my initial years and my life experience is a proper blend of nationalism and professionalism, and maybe much more. I think every scientist of today in this developing country can stand on the same page.
Yes, I agree on this to some extent. Now let's come to the point. So share your experience of work you have or you had done with Dr. Abdul Qadeer Khan.
Dr. Abdul Qadeer Khan, very passionate and professional, I must say. He has already impressed Bhutto Sahab, as Bhutto Sahab recently said in an interview that Dr. Qadeer and his nuclear researches make sense to him. So Dr. Qadeer must have mentioned his journey in his initial years, how he came back here, and a lot more he has gone through. A lot. Irrespective of all the work clashes we had, like we were working on different nuclear projects because of different perspectives about nuclear resources, I would say that Dr. Qadeer gave a new direction to the nuclear sector.
You just mentioned different perspective and a new direction. Please tell us more about this. Why was there a difference and how he gave a new direction? Aren't Pakistani scientists already working towards atomic bomb under a secretive crash weapons program since 1972?
Yes, even I was directing that program you just mentioned, but Dr. Qadeer was completely unaware of this secretive program, and so were our theories initially. Perspective wise, basically back in 1972, as I was a proponent of the nuclear arm race with India, my efforts were more concentrated on weapon grade plutonium, considering that I have expertise in producing isotopic plutonium. At that time, Pakistan was struggling on economic grounds, but we, myself and Bhutto, knew that there will be a nuclear progression in Pakistan, and following that, we started the development of explosive lens, that is Kirana, which is plutonium based fission device in 1972. All of this tells that I was more directed towards plutonium and wanted to make it forward as I could see the potential in terms of cost and production rate in Pakistan. But then in 1974, Abdul Qadeer for the first time discussed the production of highly enriched uranium, which was actually against plutonium use, and he successfully left his impression on Bhutto. From here, the nuclear sector of Pakistan got a new direction, and his uranium enrichment program supplanted plutonium production.
Right. So, what are your thoughts on Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan and his work?
Most of the scientists who are working on the development of atomic bomb projects are extremely serious. They were sobered by what they don't know. Abdul Qadir Khan is a showman. Despite of our professional clashes, I would say that the coal test conducted in 1983 was successful to a good extent, which ultimately notifies that Pakistan is now ready to experiment atomic bomb on large scale.
Right. Well, we can sense the passion in you and your fellow scientists. Thank you for your time. Allah Hafiz.
No problem. Allah Hafiz.